we have a wonderful team from Keystone Solutions, excuse me. And the group here has been a part of the Telarus portfolio for a long, long time. And many of you will hopefully recognize them. They have an outstanding reputation for focusing on SMB and mid-market customers, specifically in and around the managed solutions and security practice. They have a great go-to-market in that space, but they've also have focused on looking at what the gaps are in and around SMB and mid-market, specifically with AI. And not only are we going to go through this today and go through what their offering is going to bring to the table with their CEO, Preston, Aaron, who's the head of their AI enablement, Richard King, who's the president of the company, and Jay Morris, who you probably are all familiar seeing because he's at virtually every Telarus event that we do across the country. Um, he's their channel chief. But what we want to dig into today specifically is what is the SMB missing? How can we help them through this process, help them understand what's going on with AI, and help them leverage it and set up themselves for success? So all of this is going to be a part of the discussion today. And the one thing I want to harp on specifically is you are going to get bombarded over the next week here in a good way as Telarus partners on a new cloud launchpad. That cloud launchpad is going to give you access to not only these recordings and all this information, but also our key cloud suppliers and trainings and all kinds of blogs, any type of services that we're focusing on, like VMware, which is another thing that Keystone can discuss and help with as well. There's all kinds of different things in this cloud launchpad. So keep an eye out, not only in your email, but also on our socials and LinkedIn and all that type of stuff. It's coming out today. You're going to see it for the rest of the week and moving forward, and we'll do a big formal announcement at Partner Summit too. But without further ado, let's bring on Preston West. He's going to lead the conversation here. And Preston, if you can talk through really what brought this about. We've had some conversations internally, myself and your team here, about what's happening in the AI space in SMB, but just kind of walk us through how this all kind of came about and then what your offerings are here.
Sure. So, hey, everybody, my name is Preston West, CEO of Keystone Solutions, and we are a MSP, MSSP based out of Southeast Tennessee. And kind of going to what you were asking about, Chad, I think it's no surprise to anybody that we are being inundated with people asking us about AI. And usually the questions that come to us are less about like doing it properly, but just, hey, we got to do something with AI or we're going to get left behind. And so we saw right now as a perfect opportunity for us to officially expand what we do as a company to not just kind of leveraging AI as an add-on or a license, but actually a full piece of our practice as a staff discipline, to be able to help walk customers, whether they're a customer today or not, with navigating AI, doing it safely, doing it effectively, doing it on purpose, and then making sure that they're getting the most out of what they're actually spending. So we have added AI enablement services. Aaron West has joined our team this year to help us build that discipline, which includes not just the consulting and the advisory services, but also the actual automation and development practice. Aaron comes from almost 15 years of working in AI and automation development, workflow development, big data with some big projects that are in his history and in his head. So he comes to us with a lot of experience around this. And then using this as a good opportunity to really supplement what we already do for our customers today, which is making sure that what they're doing around technology is effective, it's safe, and that they're getting the most out of what they do. And they have a partner in somebody that brings that expertise to the table. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today and talking about this.
That's great. I think, one of the key things as you're going to discuss here with the enablement practice is really just getting, as you said, getting that groundwork established properly so that, we don't run into the issue that we talk about a lot of times on the Telarus side here at our events is garbage in, garbage out. If the
Sure.
data is bad, then the outcomes are going to be bad. They're going to be wrong. They're going to not give what the customer is ultimately looking for or to gather from that information. So, if you want to talk us through what this AI enablement practice looks like here, that would be great.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So you can go to the next slide. So I'm not going to be surprising anybody with this type of data. I think we all know right now that spend around AI is growing. It doesn't appear to be slowing down. What we're noticing is that very rapidly it's moving into the small and medium business spaces and kind of that mid-market. Spend is up tremendously, both the vendors in their actual um, infrastructure spending, but also what our customers are spending. But on the flip side, what we're finding is that most of the spending being done by customers just isn't landing yet. Either we've got people that know that their staff and their team are using AI, but they're looking around going, well, we spent all this money on AI, but the statistics, and these are recent as of some pulse polling this year, is that only about 22% of people are saying that what they're spending on AI is actually meeting their ROI expectations. And that a big percentage of those same customers, it becomes pretty clear just in the marketing, or not the marketing, in the data and the statistics, not not to mention our conversations with our customers, that they don't have a plan and they don't have a policy at all. And so we want to go through today some of the gaps that we're seeing over and over and over again around this space to make it to where the customers that you bring to the table with opportunities are not making the same mistakes and they can be outside of that 22% um, that's a problem right now. So you can go to the next slide.
One of the things as we're transitioning here is, what I see time and time again is these small businesses don't understand or don't even know really where, and I'm seeing some comments in here that this is seen a lot as a couple of our partners chiming in that are VCSOs and acting in that capacity. But the customer doesn't even really know where a lot of the data resides
Sure.
most times. So some of it may be in SharePoint or OneDrive. Some of it may be in file folders elsewhere. Some of it may be in an old server in a closet somewhere. Are you seeing that a lot of this really needs to be, and we refer to it as data readiness, but it's more along the lines of helping them kind of gather what data are they accessing regularly to do what they're doing on a daily basis versus trying to, rebuild everything from the ground up. It's really kind of taking what they do and transitioning it into a single data set, a single clean data set.
Yeah, I mean, when we get a little bit deeper into our slides, I think the thing that we will point out specifically is that data cleanliness and data hygiene is a huge piece of what makes these projects actually successful. And Aaron's going to get into that in a little bit of detail here in just a second. So that is a really good point. And I think that's where our approach to this is a little bit different. And it's by design, is that we are putting advisement and consulting into the products around AI. So even if we're putting a product or licensing into a customer, a huge piece of that is not just the system and the technology, but it's actually working with the customer to solve those problems. We look at their data. We're going to be doing sort of readiness assessments. And then at near the end of what we've prepared today, we've got some tools on our website already available that helps the customer go through that themselves and ask themselves the questions. I think on the screen, what you're seeing here are the things that we feel like are questions that customers should have settled before they buy an AI solution. What are we trying to accomplish? have we talked about costs? Is what we're talking about even an AI problem? And I think a lot of times people are kind of feeling that FOMO and jumping the gun and diving straight into some sort of a product or a solution without doing the work that you're talking about with data cleanliness and hygiene and making sure they can even wrap their arms around things from a governance and a compliance perspective. And so where we want to be injected into this is making sure that these questions are being asked up front before people jump into solutions. And so they're not getting into things and then having projects and implementations that just never go anywhere. Or on the even worse side, they are getting data back that's not actually trustworthy, which is a completely different issue. Um, so when we are and again, these aren't things that we would expect you guys when you're talking to your customers or they're coming to you about AI to be able to answer, but it's worth you noticing if nobody has asked these types of questions, right? And so that gets us into a couple things we wanted to talk about that's really pointed exactly about what you just brought up, Chad, on what happens when nobody's asking these questions. And Aaron has seen this way more times than I have with his experience and his background. So I'll turn it over to him to go over some of the errors and the problems we see with implementations when these questions aren't kind of answered effectively.
Thanks, Brett.
Great.
And I'd love to be able to call myself an expert, but I don't think anybody gets to be able to call themselves an expert in a industry that changes every 3 months, with AI. And so, but the reality is that we've built up a lot of scar tissue and figured out, walked through the bramble bushes, as it were, to figure out how to do this right, and seen a lot of things on the ground floor. And I think the main thing that's super interesting about AI is that the output from a grounded system that has access to all the right data and an ungrounded system look almost identical. And so on the surface, they appear to be as valuable. And so there is a lot of temptation for organizations to jump in and just start building stuff. And I think the danger that comes with AI is that the line between what you should be doing with it and what you shouldn't is pretty fuzzy and is always kind of changing, and changes depending on how the quality of your AI system is implemented on the ground floor. And so because that's really fuzzy, you have to either check every output, which reduces the value of the AI in the organization. So that's one kind of failure modality. And so there's a lot of organizations who have already tried to adopt AI. Maybe they've gotten a bad taste in their mouth for it. And from an ungrounded system that they have to feel like they always have to check every time. Or on the other side is you get things that are confidently wrong, and people are just using it. And there's all kinds of things, terminology like work slop and things like that have been invented. But really, the idea is we're not trying to be AI Luddites or anything like that. This is actually an opportunity, because where there's a lot of value for AI to be really transformative and super valuable when it's safe, but also be, risky when it's not, creates a lot of value for us to be able to provide solutions for organizations who want to adopt it and keep them grounded in something that works. And you can go ahead and move to the next slide. And so really the idea is that as we move through these different things, and you can move to the next slide about people and process. Yeah. And so really, this is the most common failure mode for AI adoption, is kind of thinking of it as a pure technology problem. And it really is a lot more than that. There are a lot of processes that need to radically change to implement that level of automation and speed into the environment. And I think it's important to consider too, on the people side. This is one of the first workforce skills that it has an expiration date on it. And so as things are changing month after month after month, the people side is super important to consider and is an opportunity. And so on the process side is really important. Organizations not really understanding how they operate. One example that I've used from time to time is building a kind of response writer for an organization who's responding to RFPs and RFIs. They wanted to understand, were these things compliant? It sounds like a very easy question to ask an AI, and you can easily throw a document in there and it'll just ask you, or it'll just say, yes, compliant. But what we found out in practice is that the organization didn't know what compliance meant, and that there were different parts of the organization that thought compliance meant thing A, and different parts of the organizations that think thing B. And that's a very simple case, and it kind of metastasizes over time. And so what we were able to do is feed all of the responses they ever had done, extract those rules as a canonical kind of canon of this is what the organization actually believes. And, the manifestation of many different writers kind of culminates in there. And so that's what a service that we were able to provide to help the business understand itself. And so as we move to the next slide, I think.
Can I pause you there real quick, Aaron?
Go ahead.
I think this goes back a little bit too, Chad, to what you were just asking about. So there's two modes to data hygiene. The first mode is around what you were referencing. Where does the stuff live, right? Where can these systems actually find it? And does it have the right security controls around it? Does it have the right access to it? But then the other piece of this data hygiene is, do we have our processes documented in a way that a machine can even understand what it's supposed to do? And I think
Yep.
that'd be yeah, I don't want to skip over that as part of that data hygiene, is that we're talking about a couple of different things here.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll dovetail straight into this next slide here, where we're talking about kind of how that manifests itself. So when we're talking about that data hygiene, I think it really has like business legibility. Like, can the business understand what's going on? A friend of mine uses the phrase, if you want an automated car, you first have to have a software defined car, and you have to have all of the telemetry in there to be able to do that. And so one of the failure modes that we see a lot of times is that a lot of AI adoption happens unexpectedly or unintentionally. You'll have one senior leader potentially go out and adopt a tool, and it becomes just kind of a tacit thing across the company. Or you have a lot of like behind the scenes adoption that nobody really talks about, but everybody knows is happening. And really, this is where we talk about what is that strategic advantage that we can bring as an organization to help that AI adoption. So one of those strategy pieces is, okay, what happens when the pricing model for AI fundamentally changes? Are we ready for that? Have we integrated AI into critical business processes that now depend on AI costs that have 10x in price, which is a reasonable outcome? It may not manifest itself, but how do we manage that risk? And so there's a whole risk management piece. And so as we work up from kind of understanding the goals of the business and in the mission, I think there's the opportunity here. And the way that we solve for it is really by inverting AI into these problems. And so as much as like the data cleanliness and things like that, we've had a ton of success being able to provide and surface that data with AI help and assistance, always human in the loop and things like that. But using AI to kind of propel AI further into an organization is absolutely like one of the best ways to encourage it. And you have to do that strategically and like Preston said, on purpose. And I think that it's important to understand that there are these error modes and that there's opportunity in solving them. And like the first time you learn how an electrical fire smells, once you kind of smell what's going on, you kind of say, okay, I get that this is a people process or a process problem. And Preston's going to go into the next slide and tell us a little bit about like what that actually looks like in practice.
Cool. Thank you for digging into that just a little bit. So, a big piece of what your guys' job is, especially towards us, is identifying opportunities, right? And so these are the types of things that we hear customers say in their own words, and they are dead giveaways that they may not have been asking the right questions up front, or they're making some of these errors that we keep seeing over and over. And the nice thing is that every one of these is an opportunity and it's an opening to put something in front of the customer that they need. And our take is none of these standalone is kind of a license problem. With licensing around all the AI platforms, we feel like the license is kind of the last 10% of the actual work, and every vendor is fighting over that last 10%. Our approach to this is to be the one that gets placed in the 90% of the actual hard work that needs to be done to make sure this stuff is successful. And then working with the agent or whoever to make sure that the right products and the right things get placed into the customer so that they're using AI effectively, and that they're actually getting the business outcomes they need. So you can go to the next slide. So for Keystone, what does this mean for you guys in practice? What could I sell today? And where can I make money placing a provider and a partner with my customers who can help them through this process? So we've got 4 doors that we've built around offering this to customers, and they all serve a slightly different niche and a slightly different angle. So we've got our SecureAI model that's powered by HATS. You may have heard of them. And I think one of the things to really highlight about everything we're putting together as a product is that we will not sell a product around AI without the consulting hours baked into that product sale. We believe so fundamentally that the work that we were just talking about and the plan and making sure the data is right and talking about governance and security is foundational in making sure that organizations do this well and do it safely, that we are baking that into everything we do. So Secure AI is the fast path. It's the customer that just says, we just need something so that we can get in front of our users and they have the ability to start using AI, but we want to do it in a secure way. The differentiator here is that Secure AI path is actually priced per organization. It's not a per seat, and we'll get into why that's important in just a second. The gateway path is for customers that may already be using AI, but they are wanting a safety layer that goes around it. So it's a managed AI gateway that Keystone manages. We charge a little bit for access to the platform and then some advisory and consulting services baked into that. And then it's a consumption-based model, just like a lot of these other LLM platforms end up being. What this allows us to do is add guardrails around how people are actually using AI. We can put in like policy enforcement to make sure that people say can't put PHI into an LLM call, right? We can stop it before it actually goes to an LLM and make sure that if they have compliance requirements that they don't have users inadvertently breaking compliance. And most of the time, what we see is people aren't trying to be malicious. They're just trying to do the thing that's most expedient to get their job done, right? So it's a safety layer that we can put against most of the ways that people are already using AI. And then the third door is digging into a lot of that deeper automation and development. And that's where a lot of the real money is. It's helping customers actually dig deep into their data hygiene and their workflows, automating those things, and those will always be very bespoke. The way that we're structuring those engagements is that they are always going to be more of a subscription base. And so they're a recurring revenue model for us. They will probably always include the hosting and the LLM tokenization and things like that. But by keeping these things on a recurring revenue piece, there's another onus on us as the advisor to make sure that the customer's using the products we put in front of them, right? We make more money, you make more money if they're actually adopting this and using this. And so that's a big piece of what we're doing is actually pushing adoption through their organization to make sure that they're getting the best income or the best outcomes out of what we're putting in front of them. And then we're all taking advantage of being part of that revenue chain on the back end. And then the last one is the advisory consulting standalone engagement. That's the only one of these that doesn't have a recurring model, but that's for the customer that says, I don't know what to buy, and I'm not sure that we need to buy something. We just need help figuring out where we are. And that's something that we do today and we'll be able to put in. And it's the highlight there is it's not an add-on tax on top of the products. Remember, we put advice and engagement into the other three products by default. And so the advisory is just someone who says, let's spend some money here so we don't spend 50 grand on something later that's not actually giving us the output that we need and the outcomes that we need.
So, Preston, this is great because it kind of breaks down the different offerings. And what we have a question from Mark in the chat here is, do you have an example of how an SMB customer has used AI for their organization, specifically in and around your consulting? I know you've done this, and this is what's kind of prompted you to bring this to the channel here through
Mhm.
Telarus. So, can you give us an example of something that you've done in the recent past?
Sure. The one that comes to mind specifically is, remember our core business and where we started was as an MSP, right? And that's what we still do today. That's our bread and butter today. And so our customers look at us and look to us, most of them as their sort of internal IT department. And so we had a customer recently who, came to us and said, "Hey guys, I discovered Claude Code and I've built all this stuff and it's really cool." And they weren't even thinking about um, any of the security aspects of it. They weren't thinking about where they were opening up potential gaps in their security posture. They were just asking us to attach this thing that was custom built into their Microsoft ecosystem so it could like read email and do things with email, right? And so that is a prime example of customers getting ahead of their skis. And we don't ever want to be the people that gatekeep because we're big fans of AI. We have adopted so much of what we're talking about internally at Keystone, and it is becoming transformational for the way that we're able to surface data and understand what's going on day to day. And so it's a natural progression for us to say, okay, let's kind of go into an advisory mode for this customer and say, all right, let's show us what you've built. Let's make sure we understand it. Let's make sure that you understand how this may actually be circumventing a listed policy that we've built with you on this other side, right? Because I think a lot of times a customer just wants to move forward so rapidly. And AI is cool. I mean, it can do some really cool stuff. And I am continually blown away with what we can ask some of these platforms to do, and it actually like puts together something really cool. But we want to make sure that we're tempering that with realistic expectations. And for us, one of our key taglines is we keep you up and we keep you safe, right? And so if we're not doing that advisory service around what the customer's wanting to accomplish with AI, we're missing a big piece of that as well.
Yeah, I think the key factor here is, everybody is trying to figure out how to leverage this, especially in the SMB space, because it theoretically can add a lot of productivity. It can bring things to the table that they never really had access to before in the SMB space. But to your point, Preston, what I see is, um, I look at this and I see a huge opportunity for the partners to bring the umbrella over top of this. Like their customer is leveraging this, whether it be ChatGPT or Claude or any of the others out there, and they overlook, to your point and statement there, they overlook a lot of the security aspects or the personal information or the customer's information that's out there and that could potentially be shared for the sake of, hey, this is cool, I want to roll this out. So I really think what is missing in our portfolio right now from a Telarus perspective, especially in the SMB space, is just this. And this is why I was excited to have you guys on this week, is the overarching understanding of the security practice that you bring to the table as an MSSP and leveraging that now overarching what can be done in the AI space in and around these LLMs. So thank you
Right.
for that.
Yeah, so you can go to the next slide, and we're okay on time, but I want to make sure to leave a lot for questions and things. So I'm going to
Yep.
breeze through this one. And I think the highlight here, guys, is that sometimes what we find in these engagements is maybe the answer is Copilot licensing or Claude, right? It doesn't have to be something bespoke. It doesn't have to be something that we provide necessarily. But the dangers here and the things we always want to highlight, and this is part of the education process, is we see a lot of organizations just throwing licensing out at all their users and not actually getting the adoption that they want. They're overpaying for seats. And then the other potential issue is that the more you do work in a specific ecosystem, you've got to be sure that what you're building is portable. So if you're actually building things that your business runs on day to day, something in the industry changes. Now you need to move that to a different platform, a different model, a different system. Is what's been built portable? And if not, then you could be, looking at some vendor lock problems and things like that. So I won't spend too much time here, but just saying our approach isn't necessarily only selling in what we provide, but it's about making sure that what the customer is doing with their AI dollars is landing where it needs to land. Um, you can go to the next slide, please. So here's just a couple of high-level examples of some potential deals, just to give you some real-world dollars, and taking it out of the abstract. So the SecureAI product has a number of tiers. We've only highlighted the two most common ones here, that we see people using. The managed gateway product I have already outlined. And remember, hours are included, advisory hours are included in all of these products for us. And we have the automation of development stuff. And so the key here too, guys, is that you're going to be able to place AI enablement with a customer, and you are able to participate in that recurring revenue as long as the customer is consuming it from Keystone or wherever the other licensing is coming from, as long as it's in service. The next slide is a little bit of a call out, and I would not be doing my job if I didn't, help you guys understand the parlay in some of these opportunities moving into our managed services products as well. The reality is that when we are doing AI enablement for customers, we have to necessarily touch all these different aspects of their business to make sure what they're using is accurate, it's right, and it's what they're supposed to be doing. What we end up finding is that there's oftentimes gaps and there's oftentimes other things that we can find, and everything we find as part of that process can become a real conversation and a real opportunity for another piece of other things that we provide in the MSP and the MSSP space. The the call out here for the partners is that this potentially becomes two revenue events for you, not just the one, right? So if you're bringing a customer into us, we're doing an AI enablement engagement with them, and it morphs over time into an MSP engagement. You are still the agent of record against that account, and you can participate in that business too. And again, that's always worked in as a recurring revenue model too. So it's something I just wanted to make sure is that's in our mind too. We know that most of your customers are not our MSP customers, and we're good with that. But we do see this as a foot in the door to make sure that we stay as sticky as possible within these customers. And what's stickier than literally building and helping them craft a piece of their day-to-day business workflow, and then the trust that comes along with a partner where they know we can also provide the security, we can provide the compliance, and we can provide the actual day-to-day support of those systems in kind of a single package. And so I don't want to spend too much time here, but I wanted to outline that that is something we see as an opportunity as well with putting
Yeah,
this in front
I,
of you guys.
I think because what's popping up here is a question about, existing MSPs and, a lot of existing MSPs are going to be addressing the AI
Sure.
situation just like the customer is, with a
Yep.
lack of understanding of, and this is a great slide in my opinion because it outlines everything that needs to be touched. So when you have a situation where you're not the MSP, you're going to do a work with the existing MSP, all right, to come alongside and help outline and specifically establish what the guide or guardrails, guidelines or guardrails are in order to implement the AI properly for that customer, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That we try as hard as we can, and whether it's an incumbent MSP or an internal IT department, we always try to be the friends in the room that's helping us all accomplish our goals. We try really hard not to try to come in like we're going to steal the business or move things around, unless that's what naturally develops through the customer relationship and those types of things, right? So I guess the short answer there is yes, we absolutely work with other providers and or internal IT departments to make sure that we're supplementing what they're doing and not just starting on a replacement job from day one.
Great. Um,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say there's some other questions kind of rumbling around here, but it's more on your MSP side, so we'll address those at the end here.
Okay. And then we're short or we're almost done. So
Yeah.
the next to last slide is the last thing I wanted to um, highlight. So a couple things you can do tomorrow. Um, we've got some free tools on our website. If you go to keystone.solutions/AI-resources, calling back to that 25% of people don't even have an AI policy. We have a policy builder on the site that anybody can use. It's free to use. The second tool we have is actually an AI readiness self-assessment. And this is designed for the customer themselves to go through the 6 different dimensions of what makes these things possible. And we're asking them to ask those questions we gave everybody at the top, right? The questions they never asked themselves. And so prompting them through asking those questions about where does your data live? Is your security set up properly? Do you have ROI goals? Have you budgeted for this, right? So all of the things that need to be part of that process. And then we've got a general AI adoption roadmap that is really a framework for how we bring customers through this AI enablement. All of these things are free to use. Full disclosure, we do collect email addresses and things to get email delivery of the outputs by necessity. We have to ask for email addresses. So if you are pointing customers to our resources, be sure to let us know that you're pointing customers to those so that if they do come to us with more questions and things, we can make sure to credit the right people. Um, the second thing is be thinking about and listening for those flag signals. Hey, we've got people using AI all over the place. We don't know what they're doing. Hey, we put these licenses in our business and it didn't seem to do anything or change anything. We've got outputs that are disagreeing with each other based on AI, all the things we were talking about before. Start putting together a list of things you're listening for that are dead giveaways for opportunities here and then make an introduction. Jay's our channel chief. He is your funnel to Keystone for any opportunities that may be around this or the MSP or the MSSP business. He can help make sure we're having the right conversations. We are doing the discovery properly, and we're actually putting the right solutions in front of your customers and building that trust with you and with the customers over time as well. So that's all that we have on the prepared side, Chad. And we are happy to answer some other questions. I think Aaron's been answering a few in the chat, um, but happy to answer some other questions as time allows.
Sure. So the one that just came up from Frank is wanted to address, I think it's a situation where he's an MSP. Frank is an MSP, and his
Sure.
concern is, bringing a customer to you and technically your competition. How
Right.
can you address that up front so that you can attack it together where
Right.
maybe he doesn't have the expertise that you do, but you want to alleviate the concern of the customer moving to you. Will you do some paperwork in between to make sure that customers don't move, that type of thing? Will you structure it that succinctly?
Yeah. I think the short answer is yes,
Yeah.
right? And that's our strategy for most things. Yes, and here's what we can do to make that true. It has always been true for us, and something we're very careful and deliberate about working with Telarus is that we are not going over around any of the partners that bring business to us. And so when you bring business to us as a Telarus partner, you get to sort of build the rules of the engagement, so to speak. And we can absolutely and usually do before we ever talk to a customer, we want to make sure that those are understood. Here are the guardrails. We don't want you talking about VoIP, please, because we already make money on the VoIP business, or we already sell a email security thing, and so we don't want you talking about email security. So we're already used to doing that as it relates to our other services. And this to me is no different than that. We develop the rules and that we make sure that we're not overstepping each other because the value here is that it's your relationship. You want to be building trust and we can help you build trust with your customer. And like let's be honest, there are some things that we do that we have to lean on other vendors too as well. Nobody knows everything about everything, and so we love working with other vendors, even if there's some overlap and some potential competition. We try to deal with that honestly and upfront.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And you are strictly with Telarus still, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. So this is an exclusive partner. This is someone, again, that really is focused on the space that is lacking in AI and the AI conversation right now. So I just want to drive that home that, we have a lot of enterprise solutions, we have a lot of upper mid-market solutions, but the focus here in the conversations that I've had specifically with the team that presented today is to bring something to market that is not in the market right now, period. And I think it's something that is really something that is necessary, and it's something that has been lacking, as I've mentioned numerous times. So I really appreciate Preston, Aaron, Jay, your time today, your ability to really kind of go over what is available and how you go to market and how you'll work with existing partners and not work around them. I think that's really, really key. So appreciate you driving that point home at the end here. You are a channel-based company, so that's something as well. So you understand the channel. You've been in the channel for years and years now. And it's something that we are really proud of, this relationship between Telarus and Keystone. You lean into us, we lean into you, and we really thank you for not only presenting today, but also the product set that you're bringing to market in a very necessary and timely fashion. So thank you.